Okay, I'm gonna start off by working on the eye area just a little bit. Okay, and I'm gonna just outline the eye. Okay, and also what I do is I always darken the inside of the eye with a darker shade. It's just an ink wash, really. And these are the inks that I'm using for that. Right here. And I put a little bit on the inside of the eye also. Now, I went ahead and I just used an ink pen to outline the eye and do the little pupil of the eye. Since some areas that are real delicate or require a lot of line work, I just go ahead and use a pen on that area instead of painting it. And on this side, you want to do this one a little bit darker since this one is in the complete shaded area. Work a little bit over here. And her eye socket is kind of has more shade since she's in she's getting shade from the sword. So I'll put more paint right there. Okay, and then I'm going to use a little bit of the burnt sienna for this part here. I'm still working on the shaded areas, on the skin areas. Still adding a little bit more washes here. Right over here. And then a little bit more color under here. Still going a little bit, you can still go in a little bit deeper over here. And since you're working in washes here, you just go over it several times until you get it as dark as you want. So I continue to use more. A little bit more on the nose. Like I said before, be very careful when you're working on the nose area. You don't want to put too much. And I also put a little bit in the eye, because the eye consists of different colors. Some more wash there. And this portrait is not a real person. It's kind of a fantasy person. I just sort of draw, a female face. I'm not necessarily using a model or anything like that. Sometimes I'll think of somebody's nose, the shape of their nose, and try to draw it that way, or the way the eyes look. I'll just try and draw it like maybe somebody famous. But I never try and draw like the whole entire person, the way that person looks. I just try to sort of come up with my own idea. Maybe somebody's nose on a different face or something like that. And I do get my inspiration from going to different museums and looking at different artwork and paintings, and there's a lot of interesting painters throughout history that did some really awesome work. For instance, well, of course, the Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci, and but also I like the way that Edward Degas used color. I think he was a French Impressionist. Really, all the French Impressionists were able to use their color palette. It's really awesome. So I recommend that. Do go to a museum or look through through books about these artists throughout history. Like I said, my favorite were kind of the French Impressionists, along with the Italian Renaissance portraits that people did. Okay, I'm going to start to work a little bit more on the eye right here, darken it up. Put a little more of the gray wash in here. And I'm also using it to outline her eye right here. Trying to get it going just a little bit darker. And like I said, you don't want to work too heavily with this medium, especially this medium, because it's all washes and doing very light washes to build up the color, because basically that's what you're doing. You're building up the colors. If you were working in a different medium, such as oil or acrylic or tempera paints, where the paint goes on thicker and brighter, but in this medium you want to be it's very light, so you gotta do a lot of repetition, of putting on the layers. The layering of paint can be a bit repetitious for some people, but what I do is I just work on it, and then if I do start to get a little bit bored of doing this, then I'll just put it away and work on something else, or do something else. I always recommend that when you're doing when you're working with artwork of any kind. Don't try and rush yourself. You know, if you get tired or bored, just put it away, come back to it later. But like I said, this medium does allow you to work a lot faster. Yeah, it does. It allows you to work a lot faster with it. But you still have to be a little bit patient every now and then. When you're painting in general, can be a little bit, time consuming, and I'm using the burnt umber here on her lips to darken. So what I'm doing is I'm just going in with the burnt umber color and darkening up a little bit more of the areas of her face, like under the eye socket right there, and then over here where she's got a heavier dark area there. A little bit more on her eyes. And trying to really work on the eye area, trying to really get them to stand out. And then I'm going to use a little bit more of the ink, the gray wash on the eye, on the inner eye right here. A little bit more up here. Using this ink wash on the eyes will really make them appear to look more real, especially when you darken just a little bit, on the inside of which is the white part of the eye. Go ahead and darken it a little bit, and it makes the white reflection right there in the center stand out even more. It'll make that more pronounced. Always when you're doing, like, if you want to do something shiny, you leave it completely white. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of color inside her eye, a little bit of blue. Working really, really lightly. Always when you add the color, do it very lightly at first, and then you can build it up from there. And then I'll put some of the red color on her lip, and I'm painting it over the brown color, or the burnt umber that I was using on her lip. And as you can see, the hue underneath there will be in different hues. The color of her lip will be in different hues because of the underpainting that I used. Which is a little secret that I use. Okay, and then for the golden areas, I use the burnt umber for the golden areas. No, I'm sorry, I use the raw umber, because the raw umber is really good for doing the golden areas of the metal part of her jewelry or costume jewelry. So if you have, if you're doing a lot of jewelry on a character, and a lot of it is in gold, just use the raw umber. And then if you want it to look like real gold, use a little bit of the highlights. Do the highlights in, put a little bit of yellow in the highlights. Right there. I'll do another video on how I do the jewelry or gold and those parts. But this one here, I'm just concentrating on her flesh tones, on her face features. I don't want to overwhelm you too much, but yeah, so we'll go back over here and concentrate on her face features. And then I'll use some more of the burnt sienna to sort of finish off her face. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going to go right there and add a little bit more. Very light here. I'm using a very light wash to go over the whole entire skin area. So that, and then I'll do the whole body. But you see how I went into her face and did it all and used all the layers, slowly build up the layers, the color, and then